Hey guys, welcome to another ride in Struggle Bus, where every wheel is an empty triangle. We've got another bus ride for you today, and today's game is against a 15K on OGS. And a pretty basic game, so it should be pretty helpful. There are two main things to look at in this game. We've got some direction of play choices, as well as going over how to attack a group. Those are the two big takeaways from this game. Either way, I hope you guys enjoy it, so let's get to the game. Okay, so we got our game. And we are white against a 15K. Okay, so he's doing 4-4, 3-4 facing. We will do the same. I like mixing it up and doing 1-4-4 and 1-3-4. He approached high, so we'll just back off high. Usually we would expect for him to approach low. In that case, we respond low. When they come high, we go high. And so here he's doing some very slow movements. Unfortunately, we're just going to extend here to fully get our corner. We could have tanuki'd away from this. And he extends down. So now we will take our sensei, and we're just going to approach his 4-4 stone up top. Let's see how he responds to this. And so he kicks. We will extend. Normally we would expect for him to come back to one of these two. And so he plays here. I'm still just going to extend like I normally would. There's a little more weakness here now that he doesn't have a stone on the upper side. So we'll be able to come in later in the game at like 0-17. He takes an extension off of his corner, and we're going to take an extension off of ours. We'll just keep it a small knights. And so we are trying to balance our third and fourth line stones, right? We're following the rules. We're going for the corners. Then we're going to start going for the sides, which he does here. We want to keep a balance between our third and fourth line stones, which is why I came low here, since I had fourth line stones over here. You know, we could have considered a fourth line extension, but I wanted some balance. And it looks like he is doing something similar here. And so at this point, the top side and the left side are the largest two areas. And so I am going to go poke at this spot that he should have played. And so I will play here. And this is often something we can do when we're unsure of how our opponent played a non-joseki type move, where if they were supposed to play here, we can consider playing there. So he's pincering us, which unfortunately leads to some complications. But I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to play in the second line, which we typically want to avoid, except when we need to get alive. And so we're going to play some second line moves here to get alive. I expected that he was going to come out this way. You know, when you get pincered, that is less of an attack on this stone and more of them saying that I prefer this side than the corner. So now he's changed his mind. I'm going to come this way because this is the easier way to get life. He'll still have to deal with this stone. And so it looks like he's trying to come back to connect. I'm just going to stand up. Block him from coming to the left and see if we can expand this potential. And he tanukis. And this is fine. Looks like he's looking to develop this as his large area. We can treat this, you know, this is a shoulder hit, so typically you are going to respond to this, want to respond to this move, and so we're just going to extend. And he hanes, and we will respond. But this is pretty good. This is securing a fairly large corner inside for us. And we will extend one more time because this hanes would hurt a little bit. So we're just going to extend to stay nice and strong. And here he sees this as, you know, a potential area for white. In this game, the bottom is larger. So I think it would have been better for him to take a move down here, but he is going after this, and I am going to respond because this group looks a little weak right now. And so we're just going to play this move here, just to look at getting a base for this group, so we don't have to worry about it too much. And I'm going to extend up, or I guess down in this situation, but away from the edge. And now I will extend one more time to threaten to Hane at the head of 3. I suspect he will do the same to me, and at which point we will Hane ourselves. We do have this little shape point that we have to be concerned about, and so I'm just going to fix that right now. And so our group is nice and healthy, so we don't have to worry about this anymore. Yes, he did reduce the potential on the top, but that is fine. It was never fully secured for us anyway. And he plays a nice move over here. I like this move. Threaten our last remaining weak group. And we don't want him to get too much influence here, so I'm actually going to play on the outside. We could look at this, but then he's going to be able to develop this too easily. So I'm going to play on top of his stone. Again, when I say on top, I mean away from the edge of the board. We can look at this Hane and see if this ladder works, and it looks like the ladder goes right towards our stones. So we'll be okay with that, but a little concerned with what's going to happen over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out, try to get some kind of control over here, and then look at reducing over here. And I'm just going to do a 2 space off of 2 stones, and we'll see if he goes to solidify here. But there's a lot of room to invade or reduce right now, so it's not too worrisome yet. And so he plays this stone, which is it's awkwardly high, right? And it's kind of disconnected from both his stones. So if we play a move like this, I'm not sure what way he's going to go with it. So let's play a move like this and see. If this stone was lower, it'd be a little more connected. So here we're just going to jump out. The reason we can jump is if he wedges, we get the Atari. And so now we get to see the real failing of the shape here. If this stone was lower, when I pushed here, he could just play M3 and he'd be nice and connected. But now we get to play this elephant eye, which is the stone between 2 diagonals like that, and we get to just push in. So now he's lost a lot of his potential because he played the stone just a little too high and too far away from his 2 third-line stones. I think if he'd played a 4th-line stone, the best we could have looked at was just a reduction. So he is looking to undercut us here, and so it's worth pointing out. I'm going to, before I play this move, I want to explain some stuff. When we originally, let's go back a little bit. When we originally played this move, often we look at this and go, this is, we want this to be our area, we want this to be our territory. But if that was the case, we would actually be playing a 3rd-line move, because 3rd-line moves care more. 3rd-line stones are more territorial, as where 4th-line stones are more influence. And so with that in mind, when we get to where he played here, it would not be consistent with what we were looking at for this group if we'd played here, and so we took our influence. And so by making this decision, we're saying we've turned this group into influence. And so now when we get to here, he's looking to undercut our base, but we never really wanted the base. We wanted influence. And so we're going to continue. And yes, he's gonna rob us of all of our potential points that were there, but we've already transitioned into saying this group's going to turn into influence, and that's its role in this game now. And so now I'm going to take this Hane. And at this point, we've already broken through here. We're alive here and connected. This should be able to connect out, and he's got this potentially weak group that he's going to have to deal with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to develop this center a little more while pressuring this group. And so I'm going to play this knight's move. We're not going to kill this group. Our goal is to not kill it. Our goal is never to kill groups. We just want to profit off of the attack. And so our profit is going to come in the form of solidifying the center and solidifying this left side. because he's likely going to have to come back to something like this to try to connect up with this group, which is exactly what he did. And now we can look at a move like this, which now threatens to solidify our left side. And so we want to attach this stone, and we do not ignore when we get our stones attached to, and so we typically either extend or hane. In this case, I'm going to hane. And then he comes back and fully solidifies his corner. But a little small. That's not the area that we were concerned in. We were still kind of, jockeying for position over here and over here. So this is just a little small on this board. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press over here. Right, we've got a big gap between these stones that I'd like to fix. And so we're going to play here, which threatens to push in here. It does, there was a little cut here, but we will now play this to protect that. And he now has some shape issues here, right? If he lets us get this Atari here, then we get to push down, which could be problematic for these three stones. So, but all I wanted to do was solidify this center. So he can get in here, and he can still get in here a little. So let's play something like here, which will give us good shape off of these stones and block him from coming in. There are still larger areas on this board. This descent to M2 is pretty large because it threatens to kill these three stones when we cut. If you can't, if you aren't able to read that out, if we play this and he plays something like this, we get this Atari into this, and then these three stones are dead. So we could look at that. This top left is still fairly large. So lots of still big moves on this board. So he then attaches to this again. He's attached to one of our stones, and so we are going to respond and typically either extend or hane. In this case, I'm going to extend this way, because if he cuts, we are not concerned. And so now we will connect here. And so if we look at this, again, we went to attack these stones, right? And in doing so, we've solidified and taken the entire left side and a pretty good chunk in the center. And all he's really gotten is a living group here that's connected up. But if you look at how many points that his group got, his group did not get any points. It's alive, yes. Again, our goal with attacks is not to kill. So he plays here. So we're almost forced to take this push. And again, he has to be careful because that now turns this on. We're gonna leave it alone. Again, we don't want to be killing our friend's stones here. We just want to be playing nice, solid go. And so I'm going to play here to block him from coming in. And he plays under. And that might finally threaten to kill these stones if he cuts. We play here, here, here. I still think we're fine. But I'm going to take this hane, just to be 100% sure that these two stones are fine. But I'm pretty sure that they were. And then we will connect here as a bamboo joint. We can do this, but that potentially leaves a cut here later. This is a good means of both protecting this cut and this cut with good shape. So normally this would be an issue for a bamboo joint, but since he hasn't taken this liberty and this liberty away, if he pushes, we can Atari and then connect. And so we are going to ignore that, and we're going to play this large endgame move. And at this point, this game is pretty much over points-wise. Black has his corner and this side here, whatever that turns into. And then we've got this center and the huge side, but we've got big reductions off of this stone. So let's finish this game up and see how it ended. So here we are at the end of the game, and we ended up winning by about 80 points, which makes sense. But we did make it all to the end without any huge mistakes for other players, so that was good to see. So let's take a look at the review of this game. So both of us took the 4 corners, right, following the rules that we care about. Corners before sides before the center. He approaches my 4-4 high, I respond high, and then he plays this very slow move. I'm sure many of you can understand why I'm calling this move slow. You know, anywhere on this board we can play, and attaching to one of our own stones just doesn't do too much for us right now. We could look back. We could look at coming back over to something like K4. We could look at a move like F2. You know, if we wanted to care more about the center, which we shouldn't right now, we could look at F6, right? But this is just a little too slow. It's just a very inefficient move this early in the game. And so I decided to just solidify my corner, just to keep it simple. We could have Tanuki'd here, but I want to keep things nice and simple. And so we're doing this to make sure that I feel more secure about this corner. He responded, and then we Tanuki'd. And he kicked, we jumped, and then typically here, as I mentioned, we would normally expect to see one of these two moves as the response for black. He played here instead. So when they break joseki, you can consider two things. Well, you consider multiple things, but the first two things you can consider is, does this move somehow change the validity of the move that we were going to play anyway? And so in this situation, I don't see how this stone really hurts this formation. So we can lean on the fact that we know that this is a good outcome for white, and that this is likely not as good of an outcome for black as if his stone was here. So sometimes that's our benefit. We don't need to punish if they, you know, just because they didn't follow joseki doesn't mean that you need to find the punishment. Sometimes the punishment is just the shape in the game is not as efficient as they could have gotten, and maybe they lost as many as 2 points, right? But that still wouldn't be considered joseki. The other thing that we can consider doing is we can consider looking at playing one of the moves that we would have expected him to play. So we could have considered playing here. This obviously would have turned this into a much more chaotic game, right? You can see that a fight is going to break out here. But this is also another option that you can consider is, should I just be playing the move that they should have played? In this case, I don't think that's the case. I think just getting our shape is fine. And then he played here. If he had played a little closer to this group, if he instead had played here, I would have responded to this to make sure that our group was nice and strong. But playing farther away, I was able to take my Tanuki. And then he plays on the lower side. This, I would have liked to have seen this as a fourth line move at K4, but this is fine. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing inherently wrong with this move. Since he's got a third line stone here and a third line stone here, I would have liked to have seen a fourth line stone here. But certainly not a huge mistake. And then we come back and play the move that I think he should have played earlier, right? Because his corner isn't secure here. And then he decides to pincer. I got a little nervous here because it's tough to keep things really basic when pincers get involved, because there's no like real easy answer. A lot of times we are attaching to stones, and we are looking for cuts and whatnot. So I decided just to keep it simple and play a second line move, which is not what I would typically do. Typically I would probably respond to this move, but there's a lot of complications that can happen with this. I just wanted to keep it basic and simple, so I came back. But in your games, absolutely attach to this and see what happens. Yeah, it's gonna be a little trickier. This could turn into a fight if your opponent hanes, and then they really start doing something like this to really try to surround you. You can see how this is going to turn into a fight. We don't necessarily know how this is going to end, right? This could get a little funky on us, and who knows what this turns into. So I really didn't want that in this game. So I just kept it nice and simple, played in the second line there. And then he came back and got his corner. I decided to extend and just get the side and stay ahead of this stone. And I think he came back the wrong way now, because his corner is secured. He can look at, if he's interested over here, he can look at just attaching to the stone, getting some nice strong shape. If he isn't interested in that side, he could look at this, but then we're just going to hane him. So I think once he turned, this stone got a lot weaker, and there wasn't too much he can do. And so I could have Tanuki'd here, but I decided let's make sure our stones are nice and strong. We could have also looked at extending, but again, we've already got 2 third line stones here, so I wanted a fourth line stone. And he Tanukis, does a shoulder hit on our stone, and so we responded to that. He haned, we haned, he connected, and we extended. This is all pretty basic stuff. If we played away here, this hane is difficult because we can't hane here because we'll lose the stone, and so then we kind of have to come back, and it's awkward. And so this is a pretty big move, and I took it just to just for strength purposes. Here, yeah, I think this is probably one of the options for black. I probably would have extended this. We could, black could look at pressing on this group. So this is kind of a small move, and then solidifying this. He could look at something a little wacky like this, right, and see what direction we go as he tries to develop this bottom side. This is obviously the largest open area of the board. This is the largest open area for white, but black's area is larger. So I think in this case, spending the moves to increase his area would have been better than spending the moves to decrease mine. And so he played here, and we did this just to get a base. I would probably suggest coming out and fighting what's going to happen in the center here, knowing that we're not going to get a lot of points here. But I can see this as a simple move to make sure that our group is alive before doing the stuff in the center. So I decided to go this way and still prioritize the side, though it is getting to the point where the center is going to start becoming important. And we make these exchanges, which all make sense, and he connects back, which I like to see, and we connected, and then he tanuked. I think this is all fine. I think the only issue here is he's going at it from the wrong side. If we look at this, when black plays here, he's really only looking to secure like at most 6 more points. It's really not too much, and he is looking to take some away here. But look how many points are here. Right, if he instead had come back and played on this side, now he's really looking to get a lot more than 6 points here, right? He could have also looked at just going huge, some kind of big move that says I'm going to get a lot of points here, and instead he went on the side. So I went in the direction that I thought was more important. Right, we could consider this move, but it's going to give black a really, really, really large corner here, and there's no reason for that. So we want to play stones in the direction that we care about next. It's obvious that this is going to be the area that we're playing in next, so I want to move my stones that way. And he hane'd, and we jumped out. And then this move was kind of both a little asking for too much and asking for too little. In this situation, you either want to play a nice secure move that's really going to solidify your territory, or go big and do something just enormous that says that I want to make all this mine. This was just a little too much in the middle, and it isn't very good shape, right? This is pretty easy to cut from both of those stones, and so I can immediately just go and look to break the shape. And in this situation, black can, this is a tough situation, right? I think the shape point is probably something like this because white can't really push through. But now, if we go here and black blocks, we've got this, which is tough, right? So black would probably have to extend, and now he's got this cut here that he eventually has to worry about. White obviously has to get out first, but there's a lot of problematic stuff going on here. White can look at just jumping out, but I still think this is a little better than what happened in the game. But all this looks ugly because of this N5 stone. If that N5 stone was lower, this would have been easier for black. As you can see here, like imagine if this stone was instead here. Black has a real easy answer. So this variation really doesn't make sense for white if black stone's here, but because it isn't here, we can do this variation and just push into what his entire territory was. And then he comes back and keeps on pushing on the third line, but it's not getting very many points, and there's still a lot of points to be had in this corner. And so I said, nope, we're going to turn this way and still continue going after the big area. And at this point, I changed my focus on going after these stones. And again, the goal here was not to kill these stones. Very rarely is our goal to kill stones. When we are attacking, we're just looking to get profit. And so we have to identify where that profit's going to be. So in this case, before I made this, I saw, we potentially have an area forming here. And we've got a nice strong group here and a nice corner here. Maybe we can actually grow this as well. And so that's what I was looking at when I made this move. I saw that I was going to be able to chase this group around And while chasing it, I was most likely going to be able to solidify the center and solidify the side. And that is what happened. We were able to get both of these moves, both 1 and 2, pretty much in Sente, which did a good job of solidifying. This doesn't solidify our side, but it starts to claim that. Same with 1. Neither one of these fully gets anything, but it's working towards getting both of those. And so, but when he attaches and starts doing moves like this, now we are solidifying. Then he jumped back, and I thought this was definitely the wrong spot on this board. There's still much more going on in other places. If he was looking at, affecting the most amount of points, the bottom right corner is still larger than the top right, and the center is potentially becoming an issue. And black could look at doing something like this, which certainly removes way more potential from the center than S15 gained for black. So he played there, and we started playing on this side. This does leave this cut here, right? So we need to be mindful that that exists. But if he had played here, I likely would have bambooed. I think these 3 are too big to give up. And if he pushes and cuts, it's okay, because we are now fully solidifying our center. And yes, he fully solidifies this, but we get it in Sente. These 2 stones might be a little lonely. We can look at moves like this, and we're going to be fine. With that said, this was probably a little greedy. I probably should have just played this move. I think this is a more reasonable move, and especially since it turned into this anyway, I should have just played here to begin with. So then he connects up here because he was concerned about this cut, and there are lots of cuts here, and he does need to be mindful of that. And then we go and continue to surround the center. And at this point, this game is pretty much settled. You can see where the territories are, who has what. There are reductions that are going to happen. You can see that with the M3 stone and the P8 stone, there's going to be some reductions in this corner. And with these stones, you can see that there's going to be some reductions here and some reductions here because of these stones. But you can kind of see how this is looking. And if you count up, white is ahead here. And so nothing too crazy happened in the rest of this game. There are a few things that I would like to go over, though, for the sake of our friend who played along with us. There were just some moves that came up later that I would just want to point out. So most of them I pointed out in the game, so you'll be able to see, I mentioned that this cut is here, once we descended here, that these 3 stones are going to die, or that stone's going to die, but we already went over that. But let's take a look at some other stuff. There was one move in particular that I really wanted to go over. So yeah, this is tricky, right? Because you've got the monkey jump on both sides. But yeah, here especially, you need to be mindful of what's going on here, right? Because you're now kind of getting surrounded, and if we play this, this is going to be really not good for black, because you're still probably going to have to end up connecting up. These stones are still alive. You pretty much just lost your entire side. Of course, once we had M2, that was you weren't really going to get many points over there. But the one move that I really wanted to go over, so just to be aware of things, is, where was it? It was right here. So this is one of those, you're not sure what's going on, if you're alive or not. But you need to, I suggest working on, getting a good understanding of when groups are alive or not. Because in this situation, you've already got an eye here, and it looks like you already have an eye here. Maybe you were concerned that if we Atari'd and then did this, that it wasn't going to work out for you, but you still have 2 eyes. So you are already alive here. So when you play this move, there's a couple things. This actually loses you a point, and it's kind of the same as passing, because it doesn't actually help this group live. It was already alive. While this would not have been a good move either, at least this one gets you points, right? So if you were concerned about getting alive, okay, playing here, sure, if you were unsure that this group was alive, this is a good thing to do. But there are better ways to do it. You know, if nothing else, at least play here. You get 1 more point for it. Yeah, that leaves this open, but that's still 1 more point than we had when we played here. And yeah, this is a small thing you're saying, but that's just 1 point. I didn't lose this game by 1 point. No, you didn't. But this shows this just shows like just an easy fundamental lack that you can fix, right? When we're looking to when we decide what we want our move to do, then we should find the best way to do it. And that's easier said than done. Often we just go, well, I didn't really have a goal with the move. I liked the move. But when we consider moves, we need to figure out what's the goal of that move. And once you determine the goal, let's find the best way of achieving that. So in this case, I have to assume that you were playing this to make sure you were 1,000% alive. So that's your goal. Your goal is to make sure that you get that second high. Do it in the best way possible, right? This is probably like a 3-point difference between playing this. It's still a small move because you don't need it, because you're gonna get an eye up here most likely as well. But make sure we are maximizing the points we get. So that's really all I wanted to go over. It's just a small little thing. Anyway, that's where we are going to leave this one. Again, the end of the game looked like this. You know, again, nothing crazy with the reductions, and we ended up winning big, which is unfortunately to be expected. By the way, thank you guys for coming out for another bus ride. Thanks for coming out to another ride in the struggle bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Have a good one, guys.